Hi, I'm Cole, 35, and 2 months ago I thought I finally repaired what I spent a lifetime trying to fix my family. I gifted my parents a $500,000 vineyard estate. Not because I wanted praise or some performative thank you, but because I wanted us back. After years of polite texts, forced holidays, and conversations about weather and cholesterol levels, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could create something that brought us together again. Grapes, hills, long tables, dinners in the golden hour light, laughter, forgiveness, wine, a place for healing, a home. Instead, I got a stranger's voice saying, you mean the McLean's place? They bought it last week. I thought he had the wrong address. Asterisk, let's back up. I'm the oldest, the successful one, as my dad used to say. Financial planner by trade, overly responsible by nature. My parents, Dave and Marlene, raised us in a modest 2-bedroom house with more love than space until it ran out. Somewhere around the time my sister Haley turned 16 and I left for college, something fractured between us. There were no fights, no scandals, just distance that grew like mold, quiet, gradual, until the air between us felt poisonous. We tried. Holidays came with polite tension and undercooked turkey. I once flew home just to help my dad set up his Wi-Fi, and we still didn't talk about anything real. When I got married, they sat stiffly in the second row like guests at a corporate seminar. When I got divorced, they sent a sympathy card and a gift card to Crate and Barrel. But when Dad had his heart scare last year, it woke something up in me. Mortality has a way of making silence unbearable. That's when the Vineyard dream began. They'd always talked about moving out of the city one day, growing something, starting over. Dad loved red blends and bad puns. Mom had this Pinterest board titled If We Ever Escape. I saw a listing late one night trolling hills, a quaint farmhouse, 10 acres of vines, a porch that looked like forgiveness, and I couldn't stop staring. It was everything they'd dreamed of and never had. I made an offer the next day. $500,000, cash. I didn't tell them right away. I wanted it to be a surprise. So I got the deed, hired a local crew to refresh the exterior, stocked the fridge with Mom's favorite sparkling water and the weird mustard she loves. I had a sign made for the entry, Hugh Roots Estate, 2025, and reveal day. I drove them out there blindfolded. Yes, I actually blindfolded my 68-year-old parents like we were doing a kidnapping-themed episode of The Price is Right. Mom kept giggling. Dad grumbled the whole way. When they stepped onto the gravel drive and saw the porch, Mom's hands went to her mouth. Dad went silent, which is how I knew I got it right. We can't accept this, Dad said. You already did, I replied, handing him the keys. We stayed that weekend. I made Paula. Mom made jokes. Dad sat in a rocking chair and actually smiled. For the first time in a decade, we felt like a family again. I left on Monday with plans to come every other weekend. I never got the chance. 2 months later, I stopped by and announced, flowers in hand, wine in the back seat. The gate was open. There was a new truck in the driveway, a little girl's bike on the porch, a golden retriever I'd never met asleep in Dad's chair. I knocked. A man I didn't recognize answered. Can I help you? He asked. I think you're in the wrong house, I said, laughing. He didn't laugh. Double quotes. No, this is our place, he said, weary now. We just bought it. From an older couple, real sweet. Said the land was too much for them. I stood there for what felt like a year. My parents sold the vineyard. Without telling me. Without a word. I didn't drive home. I drove straight to the beach. I sat in my car for 6 hours, watching the waves chew up everything I thought I knew. When I finally called them, Dad picked up. Double quotes. Oh, hey kiddo, he said, casual, like they hadn't just set fire to the closest thing to healing we ever had. Where are you? I asked. At the condo, he said. We moved back last week. You sold the vineyard. Pause. Yeah, you didn't think I deserved a call. More silence. Then, it was too much responsibility, Cole. We're not as young as we used to be. It was a nice thought, but impractical. It was a gift. It was a chance. It was supposed to be ours. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just hung up. I haven't spoken to them since. Now, I drive past the empty gate every other Sunday. The new owners changed the name. Solace Alley. The vines are still there. The swing Dad never hung is gone. The porch light stays on past dusk. And every time I pass, I ask myself the same question. Did I try to build something they never wanted? Or did I finally see that family was never what I thought it was to begin with? Asterisk. The next morning, I woke up with sand in my shoes and a bruise across my chest where the seatbelt had pressed all night. My car battery had died. My phone had died. And apparently, so had any illusion that this vineyard had fixed anything. I called a tow. The guy who showed up smelled like vape juice and compassion fatigue. "You okay, man?" he asked, glancing at the dried-up roses in my passenger seat. "Fine," I said. "Just allergic to real estate." He didn't laugh. Probably fair. I got back to the city and did what I always do when I'm spiraling, made a spreadsheet. I titled it Family Reconciliation, Attempt Log, Column A, Date of Action. Column B, What I Tried. Column C, Their Reaction. Column D, Notes. Column E, Outcome, Success, Failure. It was pathetic. It was also 32 rows long. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling of my two-silent condo, suddenly furious. Not sad, not hurt. Just raw, teeth-gritted furious. I'd cashed out a long-term investment account to buy that place. No loan, no co-signers. Just 10 years of adulting and discipline poured into a home I never lived in. A place I bought not for prestige, not for power but for peace. And they sold it like it was a garage sale bike. It wasn't just that they let it go. It was how they did it. Without warning. Without a conversation. Like I was a stranger who'd left a fruit basket on their porch and overstepped by putting a ribbon on it. The next week, my friend Harper invited me to her birthday dinner. I almost didn't go. But I showed up, mostly because she promised me pie. I didn't expect to run into my sister Haley. We hadn't talked much since the Vineyard gift. She was there when I revealed it. She cried, actually. Said it was beautiful. Said she was proud of me. Said this could change everything. She also said nothing when they sold it. Now, at dinner, she hugged me like nothing had happened. Like we weren't standing in the wreckage of something I built. "Hey," she said. "You look tired." "I look abandoned," I said. Her smile wobbled. "You want to talk about it?" "Nope," I said, smiling with my teeth. "But I do want pie." We sat at opposite ends of the table. Midway through dessert, I felt her watching me. Later, when people started leaving, she sat next to me and whispered. They didn't tell me either. I didn't believe her at first. But the look in her eyes, that awful mix of guilt and helplessness, was real. "I found out through Facebook," she said. "Mom posted a photo of them back at the condo." I texted her and she replied, "Oh yeah, we sold the vineyard. It was too much house." "Haley, don't make this a thing." I laughed because the alternative was screaming. "I gave them that place," I said. "I didn't just write a check. I wrote us into that land. I gave them a story." She nodded. "And they cut the last chapter." "No," I said. "They burned the manuscript." Haley sighed. I tried to bring it up. "Mom said it was just a gesture, not a contract. That you meant well but didn't really understand what they wanted." That word again, gesture. Like it was a polite smile. Like it wasn't a full body, soul pouring. "I forgive you even though you never asked," kind of thing. I couldn't stop thinking about that. I went home and wrote them a letter. Yes. A real letter. Printed. Envelope. Stamp. My therapist would have been thrilled. It read, "Dear Mom and Dad. I want to be clear. This is not about the money. This is not about the land. This is about the story we could have told and the silence you chose instead. You didn't just sell a house. You sold the first place that ever felt like us again. You didn't tell me. You didn't thank me. You didn't even say goodbye. I know it was too much responsibility. I know your knees hurt, and Dad doesn't like cold mornings. I know vineyards require patience. But so does love. And so did I." You told the stranger who bought that land more about your decision than you told your son. "I hope you enjoy the condo. Sincerely, the person who tried to rebuild what you let crumble." I didn't expect a response. I got one anyway. A voicemail. 3 days later. My mom's voice, tired. "Cole, your dad and I got your letter. I don't know what to say. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just didn't want to disappoint you by admitting it was too much. We thought letting go quietly was kinder. I see now that it wasn't. I'm sorry." She paused. "Then, call us when you're ready. Or don't. We'll be here." She sounded small. Smaller than I remembered. I didn't call back. Not yet. I did something else. I called the realtor. Not to undo the sale. Not to fight the McLeans. No, I asked if any similar properties had come up lately, places with soil and space and silence. I wanted to plant something again. Not for them. Not even for us. This time for me. Because I still believed in roots. But now I knew better than to gift them to people who didn't want to stay. 3 weeks after I mailed that letter, the guilt softened. Not gone, just enough for me to function. Enough to breathe without the weight of a ghost vineyard sitting on my chest. But something shifted the day I went to visit the county records office. It wasn't some grand revenge plot. I didn't show up wearing sunglasses and vengeance. I just wanted to see the deed transfer, to confirm it happened the way it felt, quietly, with my name left out of every detail. The clerk behind the glass asked for the parcel ID. I gave it. He typed, blinked, looked at me over the top of his glasses. You said you're the son. Yeah. He rotated the monitor slightly. There's a co-signer on the original deed. He said, it's not your parents. What? He pointed. Looks like your sister, Haley, co-signed, then signed the release for the sale. I stared at the screen. Cold panic slid down my ribs. That's not possible, I said, but the signature was there. Clear. Digital. Date-stamped. I walked out of the office and called her. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she texted. Can we talk? Please. I met her at the lake. The one from our childhood summers. We used to go there when things were good. Dad made sandwiches. Mom sunburned within minutes. Hallie and I would race to the dock. Legs too long and laughter too big for the quieter on us. Now she stood there like someone waiting for a verdict. You co-signed the sale. I said, skipping hello. Her face crumpled like paper. It's not what you think, really. Because what I think is that you signed away the only good thing I've done for this family in a decade. Her voice broke. They told me you knew. That it was your idea. I stopped reading. They said you bought it for them to enjoy temporarily. That you were planning to sell it after a year. That it was an investment. I blinked. What? Haley nodded miserably. I didn't even ask questions. I didn't think you'd give them something so permanent. So, I helped with the paperwork. I didn't know you were still visiting. I didn't know you were building a life around it. She sat down on the edge of the dock, hugging her knees. I'm sorry. I should have yelled. Should have raged. Exploded. Pointed to the text threads of new routes and finally home. I should have printed the Google Doc titled Vineyard Weekend Family Recipes. Instead, I just sat down next to her. Because something in me understood exactly what had happened. They lied to her. Our parents had taken the gift and warped it. Smoothed it into a shape they could handle. Made it temporary, conditional, forgettable. I sighed. I didn't give them an investment. I said. I gave them us. She nodded. I know. And I'm so sorry. We sat in silence for a while. Ducks paddled past. The air smelled like old memories and dead grass. Then she turned to me. Can I help fix it? I laughed bitterly. What's left to fix? But that question didn't get answered for a while. Not until the mail. It came from a woman named Sophia Blake. A name I didn't recognize. Subject line. Ray Vineyard purchase clarification and question. The body was short. Too short. Hi Cole. I hope this isn't an intrusion. I understand you're the original buyer of the estate at 412 Vintner Hill Road. We've just moved in. And some of the neighbors mentioned it was once a family property, something about a gift and a misunderstanding. I wanted to reach out because we found a box in the attic labeled for our next chapter. It had letters, journals, some photos. They seem, and finished, personal. Maybe they were meant for you. If you'd like to come by and collect them, we'd be happy to meet. No pressure. Warmly, Sophie stared at the mail for almost an hour. Then I drove. The McLean's dog was still on the porch. The swing was back up. Someone had fixed it. The gate was freshly painted. I hated how good it looked. Sophia met me at the door. Mid-40s, warm eyes, hair in a loose bun. She wore boots and a flannel and the kind of smile that meant she'd been through her own storms. I hope it's okay, she said, handing me the box. We didn't read everything. I took it. It was heavier than I expected. Back in the car, I opened the top. There were 6 envelopes. Each one addressed, "Cole, open when you're ready." The handwriting was my mother's. One was dated the day I handed her the keys. The first line read, "We never expected this gift. We don't know how to deserve it, but we're trying." Another envelope, dated 2 weeks later. "We sat on the porch today and watched the vines move. Your father cried. I haven't seen him cry in 15 years. Another, "I found your note in the pantry. Hope this place becomes part of us. It already has." And then, the last one. "No one told us how hard it would be to feel worthy of something this big. We panicked. We told ourselves we were too old. But the truth, we were afraid of being happy in a way we didn't build ourselves." There was no signature. Just a postscript. "Don't stop planting. Even if we didn't stay, it doesn't mean the soil was bad. We just didn't know how to hold it." I sat there for a long time, the box in my lap. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something broke. Not painfully. Not violently. Just released. They had tried, in their own broken, backward, terrified way. And they failed. But maybe I didn't. It took me 4 days to open the final envelope. Not because I didn't want to know, but because I needed to read it with the right kind of silence around me, the kind you find only after you've accepted something's over. I sat on the floor of my apartment. Box beside me, a glass of Pinot Noir I'd saved for a someday occasion. This felt like one. The last envelope was dated the week before they sold the vineyard. "Cole, we don't know how to tell you we can't do this. The place is beautiful. The air here is different. And I've never seen your father so still. But we can't take care of it. Not the way it deserves. Not the way you deserve. We keep talking about what to say, how to frame it, how to soften the disappointment. We always used words like temporarily and too much house, but the truth is, we've never been good at staying in one place when things get too good. Maybe that's why we were never good at staying close to you. I wish I had the language to explain why we failed at receiving the thing you gave so freely. It wasn't pride. It wasn't ignorance. It was fear. We didn't know how to be a family inside something that pure. So we ran. Please forgive us." There was no signature. Just a single photo tucked inside a picture of me, Dad, and Mom on the porch, each holding a glass of wine. Mom's head on Dad's shoulder. My hand on hers. It looked like the life we never quite figured out how to live. I placed the photo on the shelf by my desk. Not as a memorial. Not out of spite. But as a receipt, proof that something real had existed, if only briefly. The next week, I called Sophia. Not for closure. To make an offer. I didn't want the house back, but I asked if I could rent the barn. Just the barn. She asked, surprised. Just the barn. She agreed. A month later, I was there every weekend. I cleared the old vineyard tools, swept up spider webs, and turned the space into something new, a workshop, a gathering room, a place for people to come and taste, learn, grow. I wasn't starting a business, not yet, but I was building something small, sustainable. Something mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was renting space on land I used to own, but this time, I wasn't gifting it away. I wasn't trying to heal anyone else. I was letting the land heal me. I named it Second Root, not because it was the sequel, but because it was finally the first time I did this for myself. Haley showed up one Saturday with coffee and guilt. "I can help," she said. "Painting, sanding, whatever you need." "You don't owe me anything," I said. She shrugged. "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the version of us that should have grown up here." We worked in silence. It was the best conversation we'd had in years. Word got out, locals started coming. At first, just curious. Then, to volunteer. A retired viticulturist offered to teach me pruning. A couple from up the hill donated an old wine press. I didn't post about it online. Didn't tell my clients. Didn't even update my LinkedIn. This place wasn't for performance. It was for presence. And then, because irony loves timing, I got a call. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hey, Cole," my dad said, voice dry. "Tired. Your mom's been watching the updates." From Haley. We didn't want to interfere, but we were wondering if we could see the barn sometime. I didn't answer right away. I looked at the ladder propped against the wall. The work gloves. The half-sanded countertop. The beginnings of something better. Then I said, "Maybe, not yet, but maybe." He didn't argue. He just said, "Okay, we'll wait. And we're proud of you." He hung up. "No pressure. No guilt. Just words I never thought I'd hear again. I didn't cry. But that night, when I turned off the lights and sat alone in the barn, I whispered one sentence to the empty room. Thank you for not becoming what they turned it into. Second route isn't finished. Neither am I. But for the first time in my life, I'm building something that doesn't need to be understood to be worth having. And when people ask if I regret giving my parents the vineyard, I say no. Because now, I know who I'm planting for. 3 months after the barn opened, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address. I didn't need one. It was Mom. Dear Cole, I don't know if I deserve to write you, but if you're still opening letters, here's mine. We walked by the vineyard last weekend. Didn't go in. Just stood by the gate. Your father stared at the porch for a long time. I think he wanted to walk up and ring the bell, but we knew better. You turned something broken into something honest. I've always loved flowers but never understood how soul works. You did. We talk about you more than you'd guess. I told your father you were right. We never said thank you. Not once. So let me say it now. Thank you. For the house. For the chance. For forgiving us, even if you didn't say the words. You loved us louder than we knew how to love back. And we're sorry. It was signed, simply. Mommy read it 3 times. Then I burned it. Not out of anger. Not for drama. But because I'd spent enough years carrying letters I didn't send, waiting for apologies that never came, clinging to half-truths like they were gold. I didn't need their sorry to keep growing. I already had something better, a second route, and the right to keep choosing where I plant. By summer, second route became more than a project. It became a place. A local school brought kids by for a field trip. We taught them how vines worked. Not just the wine part, how things grow, fail, restart. One girl asked if grapes had to be perfect to make wine. No, I said, they just have to be honest. That became our tagline. Honest fruit. Honest ground. Honest people. Every now and then, someone would ask about the name. I'd smile and say, first route got lost. This one knows where it's going. And then came the Saturday I'll never forget. Haley showed up with a bottle of red and an envelope. She handed it to me, quietly. No explanation. Inside, a deed. To 5 acres of land, adjacent to the old vineyard. My name on it. No co-signers. No catches. It's yours, she said. I bought it. With some help. I looked at her. Help from who? She grinned. Mom and Dad. I laughed. You're kidding. Nope. They didn't want to put their names on it. Said they'd already taken enough. I opened my mouth. Closed it again. I didn't tell you until it was done, she added, because I knew you wouldn't believe it was real. But they wanted to give something back. Not out of guilt. Because they saw what you built. I looked at the landline in the barn. Old-fashioned, rotary. I hadn't plugged it in. But I thought maybe it was time. We walked out to the edge of the property. I looked at the spot where the fence ended. 5 empty acres. And touched, quiet, waiting. Haley nudged me. What are you going to call it? I smiled. Third route, I said. She blinked. You're joking. Nope. First was the gift. Second was survival. Third's for future. She rolled her eyes. You're such a poet. No, I said. Just a guy with a shovel and finally the right ground. We stood there, wind rustling through the leaves. The smell of soil and forgiveness mixing in the air. A little girl from the school group tugged on my sleeve. Mr. Cole, do plants know when they're loved? I knelt down. Thought about the vineyard, the letters, the sale, the burn, the rebirth. Yeah, I said. They know. And they remember. Later that night, I plugged in the landline. It rang before I could even dial out. I stared at it, picked it up. Hello. A long pause. Then, Cole. It's Dad. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Like he'd been holding his breath since the day they left. We drove by today, he said. The barn. The new vines. It looks. He didn't finish. It looks alive, I said. Yeah, he whispered. It really does. There was silence. Not awkward. Not heavy. Just peace. We're proud of you, he said again. Always have been. We just didn't know how to show it. You could have started with not selling my gift, I said lightly. He chuckled. Fair. Then, can we visit? Just the barn. No expectations. I thought about it. Thought about the porch, the wine, The laughter I imagined years ago. Thought about what's earned, what's forgiven, and what's simply grown into. Not yet, I said. But maybe. I hung up. Then walked outside, dug a small hole at the edge of the new land, and planted the first vine of third root. No ceremony. No audience. Just me, the soil, and the wind. And this time, I planted it for real. Not as a gift. As a beginning.